We're rolling. And so, yeah, like I was saying, the idea today is just kind of talk about what it's like when you're first diagnosed with osteoporosis as a man, what goes through your head, what you can do about it, what you did about it, Jonny. And I'll talk about myself as well if that's relevant. But I kind of wanted to hear from you because I think you've got a really interesting story, and from what I've learned about you, your scores were pretty severe, and you took a particular path, and just curious to see what it was like, why you made the choices you did, what research you did, what you learned, and just kind of have a chat really about that. So when were you diagnosed with osteoporosis?
The I wasn't diagnosed until 2019. So that was, yeah, would have been in September of 2019. Although evidently I should have been diagnosed almost exactly a calendar year prior, because it was
Yeah,
in the I as a rough kind of history, when you look back and look now on all those little kind of like warning signs, three of them in
yeah,
my life, I'd broken ribs on a number of occasions. Always got told the same. There's not a lot we can do about it. We
yeah,
literally won't even bother X-raying. Just go
yeah.
away. Don't do this. Don't do that. They'll fix up. I'd broken a bone in my foot and my wrist. My nose had been fractured. That's a school bully though, so I think we can count that one out.
Yeah.
Uh, Still a bit wonky now, I think. But
Oh,
all
it's,
the other
it's
kind
it's
of
a
fractures.
handsome nose you got there, Jonny. It's a good one.
Yeah, I wonder what it might have looked like before. Oh, so yeah, I'd broken a few ribs and different things and didn't really think of it. And it was actually in August 2018. I was out running. I've always thought of myself as being healthy, and I
Yeah,
just slipped on mud on a hill and fell on my back. What I thought was broken ribs, winded myself, whatever.
yeah,
Did the usual, and they basically said, "Well, it's a couple of broken ribs, so we're not going to do anything. Take some
yeah,
anti-inflammatories and painkillers, go away."
yeah,
And I kind of, having done it multiple times, went, "Well, that's what you do when you break ribs, and
yeah.
breaking ribs is a kind of a common occurrence."
Yeah, that's interesting because I also broke ribs up on ribs up on ribs, snowboarding, Muay Thai, all these different things, and I just thought, well, someone kicked me, someone punched me, I fell over, so it's kind of normal, not something, there you go, and just get on with it.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing. It's not until I think you chat to other people, and if I mean, apart from obviously we're in a separate group now. Obviously, when I say how many bones you've broken, and you'll list a whole bunch, but I
Yeah,
ask people how many bones you've broken, and they go none,
no,
or
yeah,
one, or
yeah,
possibly two,
yeah.
and I go, I'm in the 20s,
Wait,
30s if I add them all up. If you add up all the
wow,
ribs and the rest of it, so yeah, it's not. And I think whether GPs don't, you live in different countries, they don't kind of put it all together, and there's not those alarm bells. So yeah,
yeah,
that was the August. Broke the ribs, went through a lot of pain, discomfort. Didn't really think too much of it, and then the pain just got worse and worse and worse and worse over 3 or 4 months.
right,
They told me, yes, you've got two broken ribs at the back right. And after 5 months and almost what felt like frozen shoulder,
yeah,
I went to my physio. My physio said, something's not right. We'll check this out. So they sent me for more scans. And that's when they came back and went, oh, sorry, we missed a couple. And that's when I found out ribs
wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10 on the posterior right were all fractured
At
five
that
months
time
after.
or
At that
previously?
at that time, and still
Wow,
fixing. And this was in the after the September. It would have been about the December time, maybe even
yeah,
January. And they discovered there was a 30% crush fracture in the spine. And that's when I went,
wow,
that's really odd.
yeah,
What about osteoporosis?
yeah.
And they kind of went, no, your testosterone's fine. You're not a smoker. You're not an alcoholic. You've not been on the steroids. No risk factors. Move along. Didn't think anything of it. And it was exactly a year after the original event. I was literally leaning over like a couch, like one of these, but grabbing the vacuum cleaner, and I pushed my body weight on my ribs, heard three audible cracks. Well, not
Wow.
three audible cracks, sorry, heard audible cracks. And that time I just went straight in, got a DEXA scan, got the x-rays. I just rang the
So
GP
at
up.
that point, did you just say, "Hey, I need this scan," or did they go, "We should probably give you a scan"? How did that
I
play out?
literally just rang them up and I said, look, I'm pretty sure I've broken it. I spoke to them on the phone and they said, no problem you have to be referred, which I think is crazy, even though I'm
Yeah,
paying for the DEXA scan myself, and I just paid
yeah,
for it. They said, "Yep, go and get it checked, and we'll have a review afterwards."
right.
Got the DEXA results, which were the, as you say, minus 3.9, minus 4.1 in the spine. The
Yeah,
hips were
pretty
around
intense.
2.2 and minus 2.5, I think the hips were. So kind of scary low, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like the 3.9. And sure enough, I'd broken 3 ribs. And that's when they
yeah.
went, okay, yep, you've got
It's funny
osteoporosis. And the fact that,
how much it takes, right? How much you need to do to be just for someone to go, you know what? We should probably give you a scan.
exactly.
Figure it
And
out. Like
even then,
I had to put it together. Like for me myself, like I had three fractures in the previous 18 months, and I went to the GP, and I have a medical background, and I had to use that and go, I have a medical background, I have 3 fractures, and like presenting a legal argument for this thing. I think we should scan it. The doctors they're going, I think you're right. We'll try it out. So I'm like,
it's
yeah,
it's got, yeah, it is absolutely, it's amazing that it takes so much when the cost of a DEXA isn't that great.
no,
And if you found out, like for me, I had a year of pain and discomfort where I could have started my healing process a year prior. I could have
yeah,
started in the August 2018 if they'd have, you know, done maybe what I wanted rather
yeah.
than me really pushing it in 2019, which I mean, a
What
year
if
is
you went
huge.
back? What if you went back many years? Because I mean, for myself, if I think, I, so I was diagnosed in 2020, but in 2014, I rolled my ankle and I broke it in 5 places. For a healthy, at the time I was in my, I just turned 30. That was a warning sign. And in fact, I actually I got to take some responsibility for this because I was given a referral for a DEXA scan back then, not by a GP, but by my dad. He's a GP, not my doctor. So he was like, "This is weird. Have this. They do this." I was like, I looked at the thing. I was like, "I don't need this. I'm fine." And so I probably could have gotten onto it, like you saying that earlier. Probably like but I don't think I don't know if I was ready for it back then. I don't know if I could have like gone on the journey that I've gone on recently because there was just so much happening in my life back then. Not that there's any less happening now, but I think I'm probably a bit more mature and can manage it and kind of get onto that journey. But I mean,
Yeah,
because you were breaking bones for a while.
yeah. I mean, when I look back, and obviously those the big events was the August of 2018 and the August of 2019, and I look back and I go, well, multiple times I've broken ribs
Yeah,
and didn't really think anything of it. And the fact that the status quo, even if you go to an ER, is to go, we're actually not going to X-ray you. Your lungs are functioning fine.
yeah,
You're not in any
yeah,
risk of death
yeah,
or anything like that. So they just send you away. So I kind of just thought it was the norm. But you're right.
yeah,
If I'm sure now, if you collated all my records through my entire life and all the different fractures and showed it to any GP
yeah,
prior to these last 4 years, they'd look at it and go, surely I would have thought they'd look at it and think it's a bit odd.
yeah. And I think that's kind of the key because with osteoporosis, often you don't know if you have it until you start breaking, and it's either a big unusual fracture, like my rolling my ankle and breaking it in 5 places at the age of 30, warning sign. But then there's all the combination accumulation of many fractures like yourself, and seeing that picture and going, hang on, something's off here. But like you're right, in an ED or an ER, they're not looking at your history. They're like, what's broken now? We fix it now. Off to your primary care physician or your GP to sort the rest of it out.
Yeah.
And even then, often they're very busy and they might have 10 minutes, 15 minutes with you. And often they become like an ER where they're like, what do you need, Jonny? What do you
Yep.
need today? Fix it, off you go, next person. But it's when you sit down and start to kind of put the picture together. And so then, when so in 2019 was
Yep.
the date when you had that scan, and it comes back, they give you your T scores. What goes through your mind at that point? What's going through your mind?
I actually didn't when I've got the results back. I did enough quick research to realize, wait there, man, I've got really low bone density, and this is kind of the figures you might see in somebody who's 80 or 90,
Yeah,
but didn't really truly understand. The GP was looking at it straight away, went, this is beyond me. You need to go to see an endocrinologist, which is obviously meant to be the expert
Yeah.
to discuss it. So I was like, okay, we're on the right track. Again, had to, pay for it privately, went and saw the person, and they literally, I wouldn't say they were nonchalant, but they were very much, these are your figures. They're so low that you are going to break. Whether it be tomorrow, a week, 3 weeks, whatever, I wouldn't say they put the fear of, use that word, the fear of God into you, but they definitely scared me and basically pointed out, you have no choice, but you must be on some drugs.
Yeah.
Bisphosphonates are what you need to be on,
Yeah.
and that's going to be you for the rest of your life. You need to avoid anything where you might impact something, fall off a bike, horse riding. Certainly don't do Muay Thai or any of these different activities. If you're
Snowboarding and running, all the things you love to
running,
do.
all the things where which we know have so many other good attributes for the body and mind in
Yeah.
general. And yeah, I mean, I walked around, like anytime it was like icy, I was terrified that if I was
Yeah.
going to fall over, that that was it. I'm going to hit a wrist, I'm going to hit an elbow, it's going to break,
Yeah.
because anything I hit now is going to
Yeah.
break.
Especially after you said you were bending over the couch and you felt ribs cracking, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. And
scary,
that, and
'cause it's like, what's it going to take for me to break something, you know?
exactly, and when I look back now, I mean, I've still got not still, but I've got a depressed bone there, which was a handshake. So a good
Wow.
old Kiwi handshake, firm shake, and I felt it
Oh, yeah.
crack and went, oh, and winced away. So yes, evidently, regardless of what was happening, I was breaking bones, and
Yeah.
the low density matched the fact that basically I appeared to be able to sneeze and break something. So yeah, I kind of stood there and went, well, what do I do? The expert said you take these drugs. Uh, they first tell you, of course, Fosamax, which is the oral one, the GP does. The endocrinologist knows that, or from the stats are, adherence to taking that after a few months tapers off and people just stop on a regular basis. So they basically always want to push the IV version. And me being inquisitive at this point is when I started to go online and do my research and going,
Yeah.
well, bisphosphonates, as far as I understand, they slow down your bone turnover, how it's formed, how it's reabsorbed, which is a natural process which should be happening, and they slow it right down. So, okay. So I presume that my turnover is going really fast and it needs to slow down. Can I have that checked first? At which point they went, no, we don't check it. And I went back and forward, back and forward, back and forward, trying to argue my case, going, well, if it's already really slow, why do I want to slow it down even more? Yeah, but we need to slow it down. It may well already be slow, in which case I'm maybe naturally taking a bisphosphonate.
Yeah.
My body just naturally just does that. Is that the right thing to do? So I argue my case for what I call BTMs, bone turnover markers, having done a lot of research online, listening to people like Keith McCormack in the States, uh, and across the board in New Zealand, they said, we don't do bone turnover markers. We don't assess. We don't watch them. So I did a bit more research and then found out actually they do. They
Yeah.
test them to see if you're taking a bisphosphonate merely as to monitor to see if you're adhering. So I
Yeah.
said, well, you do use them to check if you're adhering to the drug. So can I just
Yeah.
have a test and have a baseline? And eventually they said yes. Got the baseline. Both of mine were just so low. That's the point there when I don't want to slow them down even more. If the
Yeah.
fact they're low anyway is put me in this position, why would I want to slow them down even more? And that's when I did my research for Forteo,
Yeah.
argued the case, and they eventually said, yes, but you're going to have to pay for it. And I don't know if it's really the right choice. But eventually the endocrinologist agreed with me and said,
Yeah.
you know what? I'll sign the referral and you can get yourself that drug. And I did it for
Right.
18 months.
Right. And did you continue doing the bone turnover markers along the way?
Absolutely. They were happy to do 3 monthly checks, three
Yeah.
monthly, 4 monthly checks, just to
Yeah.
see what was happening. And it was good for me because going, as we'll probably come back to, that fear and that scare, I'm going to fracture, seeing that the drug was having an effect on the bone turnover markers, and they were both moving up, and the
Yeah.
formation was moving up way quicker than the reabsorption was,
Yeah.
seemed to my mind to be working well. So
Yeah.
yes, we monitored it for 18 months. At the end of 18 months, they started to seem to taper off. They didn't seem to be having the same effect they had at the beginning, which is what the research papers say.
Yeah.
So with the cost of it and during COVID, uh, financially, I made the call to go, you know what, maybe I'll revisit this. I'll stop now.
Yeah. And so it was, how long did you end up staying on them in total?
It was either 18 or 19 months. I'd have to go and check my notes. It's 18 or 19 months I did them for.
Interesting. Yeah, because I never took, my scores weren't in a place, and for me personally, it didn't make sense to take any medication, so I never did. But I know that a lot of people do, and they wonder about this. And so, I mean, how long were you? What did the endocrinologist want you to keep taking the medications? What was the plan? But
At
you
the
cut it off yourself?
at the time, he was more than happy to support me to say, you're paying for it, you can do it,
Yeah,
and was happy. At the same point, he was happy to go, you can be funded and be on the IV bisphosphonates. So there was no qualms there. He did at the time tell me there was a black box warning, which there was for 2 years,
yeah,
and they couldn't prescribe for any more than that.
yeah,
That actually disappeared sometime during the duration that I was taking the Forteo. But I basically, having watched the BTM, said, look, I've done it
yeah,
for 18 months. I've spent X thousands of dollars.
yeah,
Relatively, it's affordable in New Zealand in comparison to other countries. Australia and New Zealand, I wouldn't say it's affordable. That's a different manner, but it might cost you 5 or 6 times that amount in the States to
yeah,
self-fund. So it's quite different. But I chose at 18 months and went, I can revisit this. And
yeah.
the endocrinologist said, yes, the current endocrinologist said, yes, I agree. We may revisit this in a number of years' time. But if you finish it, you need to get straight onto a bisphosphonate or you'll lose all the gains. And you must be on those bisphosphonates basically forever.
Wow. And so, did you have a scan done, DEXA scan, or what, and to check the progress?
Yeah, I had, and I'm due again. I think we talked about this the other day. I'm definitely due, and I'm hoping to get out to Auckland soon and get one done. I had 3 DEXAs done, obviously the baseline, effectively the baseline one, and then 2 subsequent ones. And my numbers did increase. They went from, I think, -3.9 to -3.3 to -3.1, which still, if you're first told you've got a -3, it's scary. But for
Yeah,
me, a 3.9 to a 3.1 is, as you know,
that's
it's logarithmic, is massive.
yeah,
It's
that's
huge.
huge, huge.
And the most critical thing for me was when you look at not just bone density, because there can be a lot of issues there we can go into later, bone quality must have improved. Whether you call it microarchitecture or whichever.
Yeah,
I was still doing things the same as I had done before, but now I wasn't breaking. I
yeah.
wasn't
Tell me about
fracturing.
that, because this is when things get really exciting. Because I know that you're doing some pretty intense exercise now as well, and things aren't
Oh,
breaking that where they probably could have before. So tell me on the journey that you've gone through in terms of what you can physically do now, compared to what you were afraid of doing back then.
I mean, I look back now. I mean, the time before I started the treatment, between like the massive number of breaks and the other breaks, I was just on painkillers, laid up in bed, fuzzy
Yeah,
head, wasn't doing anything, wasn't
yeah,
capable really of doing anything.
yeah,
And then once I started the medication, the fractures all stopped, and I didn't actually do any lifting. I didn't do anything crazy. I started running a little bit,
yeah,
the stuff that I enjoy and mentally
yeah,
helps me, and did those kind of exercises. But I started lifting, very light lifting, because all of the endos had said anything between 5 and 10 and 15 kilos. It's like they go, that we'll pick a weight. That's it. You must not lift more than
yeah,
15
yeah.
kilos. And you look at
Yeah,
them
they
and go
picked
like,
a number. Somehow they picked a number there that makes them feel comfortable. No
exactly.
more than
And you
that.
go like, my daughter weighs more than that.
Yeah, yeah,
Shopping bags weigh more than that.
yeah,
Oh, so yeah, I started at the gym and I started really light. I've been going for a year and a half now. And I started off literally with those 5 kilo weights, going through the
yeah,
motions, doing the form. I was fortunate to have a really good coach and PT who watches me like a
yeah,
hawk, basically, and checked
yeah.
form. And yeah, I mean, I've never weighed a lot. I weigh like 70 kilos.
So what's
And
that
I
in pounds for our American friends?
100 so I dropped to 154. So I was 100. I'd always been about 165 pounds my
Yeah,
entire life.
and you're
So
quite tall as well.
yeah, I'm 6'4". So
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I'm skinny. But I
yeah.
weighed
So
about
me
100.
too. Me too. Like you're like this much taller than me. I probably weigh a bit more, but
Yeah,
I've always been on the thin side, definitely.
definitely. So yeah, I weighed 165 kilos my entire life, pretty much since I was 20, and I dropped about 155, which in our language, 67 kilos. saw a nutritionist, couldn't put weight on, just nothing. I followed the nutritionist rules, exactly what she told me to take, which was some Ensure powder, and the calorific intake was huge. It was over three, well, so huge for no activity, over 3,000 a day. Didn't
No
put an
way.
ounce on.
Three
Did
thousand
not.
calories a day and not putting on anything.
Nothing at all. But this is what I always thought. I always thought you are what you eat, and I think I've mentioned this before. You are what you absorb. I realise now, and I don't think I was eating the right stuff. But
Right.
in answering your question, the gym. So I started off with 5 kilos, and probably about 6 months of just doing fives and tens and 15s, and just getting the body into moving and form.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, what are we at? I'm just trying to think. With relation to body weight, the deadlift was less than half my body weight, and that
Yeah.
was pretty much what it was. And I felt that as being quite a weight. Then I got to three
Yeah.
quarters, then my body weight, and now I'm up to, I think, 1.4 times my body weight. Very happy
Yeah.
with that. We've all got goals to go a little bit higher.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it.
So it's phenomenal when you think you're weighing what, 160 pounds, and you're then lifting 220 pounds.
And because the thing is, like, I'm just trying to put this all together in my head because you're on the Forteo, you've got the DEXA scan once you finished it. You haven't done a scan since then, that right?
No, I haven't.
So
I
we
get
don't
my
know what's going on, but you're lifting so much more than you could back then. So in my mind, there's more going on than just the Forteo, what benefit it gave you there. Like there's stronger bones there, or you're physically, the quality of the bones has changed or improved, or definitely your strength, but your coordination, your balance.
I think your word that the quality of the bones is really something I tune into there. That word there, quality. We get so tied up with what the DEXA says,
Yeah,
uh, that I think looking at bone turnover markers, that gives you another view of what's actually happening,
yeah,
which you can do on a more regular basis. So yeah, I've not had a DEXA done since. Obviously, I had them baseline. They showed improvement. I'm very excited to go and see what they're now doing. I think the
yeah,
Forteo, in all reality, in my mind, improved the quality of the bones, got me out of a danger zone that I
yeah,
could actually then start to do what's really, really, really important, which is what we eat and what we do. And I
yeah,
think the point was, I don't think drugs are the right choice for everybody, but I
no,
was in a point where I was so fragile and just
yeah,
fracturing so easily. That got me in my situation to a point where I could then go, right, okay, now let's work on the diet and let's start
yeah.
lifting things. And now things just seem to be, I mean, confidence just goes through the roof.
Yeah, and what I love about your story is you've been tracking your BTMs, bone turnover markers, for many years now.
Yes.
And there was a big kind of like a jump when you were on the Forteo. It dropped off when you stopped. And
Yep.
then tell me what happened after that. Because I know, but I want to hear you tell the story.
This is what I find so exciting when you're looking at, you're trying to obviously stimulate bone formation in a greater proportion than the bone reabsorption. You want both to happen, but you want them to go. And Forteo makes them both spike. And then as you come off Forteo, they both drop. And I did take a bisphosphonate for a short period of time because that's what every single person, even the people that promoted using Forteo, said you'll need to do. They said for life. I did it for 9 months, and that smashed them right back down to my baseline, exactly the figures I had before I'd started Forteo.
Yeah,
And then as I watched them before I started lifting, the reabsorption started creeping up and the formation stayed the same. At which point I went,
that's when it gets scary, right?
it got scary, and I went, am I going to undo everything I've done because I feel great? Am I going to undo everything? So I went, well, I can either start on the bisphosphonate again and that'll bring them both down,
Yeah,
or, and I was just starting to get the body moving and thinking weights and the rest of it. So I started doing the weights. And what is so amazing is this gradual increase since I've been lifting weights, and the more and more I do more regularly, as in three days a week now, religious and eating different things with it, the formation's going up and the reabsorption is dropping. And it's a really, if you put it on the graph, as you've seen, it's
yeah,
distinct. It's huge. I
yeah,
mean, the change is massive. So
yeah,
you know for a fact that, that they tell you take these drugs because they do this. I am now, from what I've seen and what I've tracked, saying this is what exercise and diet does.
yeah,
I'm not saying drugs don't have a place, but this is clearly written.
yeah.
it's a class of one, unfortunately. But I'm sure if we all got these bone turnover markers
I
done,
know. I since because I was never really looking at the burn turnover markers when I was kind of in my early stages. I
yep,
had the initial ones done
yes,
and some follow-up ones, but I never really thought about it. I was more like, I just got to work out. I got to get this done, and then I was thinking about the next DEXA scan, the next DEXA scan. But since then, I've started to track them, and I'm looking for the trend, and I'm excited to see for myself and for others. That say if you're if you're watching this, stay on your burn turnover markers,
yeah,
CTX
I
and
think absolutely.
P1NP.
I mean, your bone turnover markers really give you a snapshot of what's happening right now. So
Yeah,
you can get them done, and there's certain things you have to avoid, what you don't eat, and all the rest of it, doing fasting and the rest of it. But for one thing, you can go to any blood lab and have them drawn because they all
yeah,
go to the same assessment place and the same
yeah,
protocols are done. So you can all compare and actually look at those. Whereas DEXA machines, if your position's not quite right, use a different
yeah.
machine, you've got errors, you have to
Oh man.
wait at least a
God
year to
forbid they
maybe see a
shut down
change.
the first machine. Like they shut mine down, and I had to start. It's like starting again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know you're kind of in that situation. So
Yeah, that was
I don't
literally
want to
just recently.
scare
I was
you, man.
like, ah. But what I'm hoping to see is such a drastic change that you couldn't put it down to the error of the machine.
Yeah,
That's if there is, I mean, for example, if I go in and it comes up as 2.1, we'll be like, whoa, something huge has happened. Which is why I like bone turnover markers. You can do them every 3 months, as long as your
yeah,
doctor agrees. The cost of them is not huge. They,
no,
they're about $30 for each one to be tested. So
yeah,
it's not like you're asking for. There's some obscure blood tests out there. I mean, you can look it up that are $400-500 for each one. These
no,
things are $30. It's nothing,
yeah.
and we
And
know for
there's
a fact.
research to back up CTX and P1NP that they are the markers to look for, that their movements correlate with or caused by activity in the bone, and the right kind of movements is what we're looking for, and that's what you've been experiencing with your lifting and the right kind of eating.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going in the right direction, which is exciting.
The tough one I found is convincing the doctor to sign and do the test, because even if you can pay for them, they're not
Yeah,
a test you can just go and pay for. The doctor has to say yes, you can do it, and then you can pay for it, or the doctor may well fund it, or your health authority.
yeah. I mean
But
that's
yeah,
New Zealand. Australia's the same, but also in Australia there are labs where you can just pay and they'll get it for you
yeah,
and get it done
we,
for
we,
you.
we've
Costs a
we've
little bit
got
more that way.
we've got labs in New Zealand you can pay, but those two are not listed on there. They need a
Oh,
referral, as
okay.
far as I understand it, in New Zealand anyway. Uh, but yeah, there's you can be doing so much in your life if you're trying to treat this and get out of that scare mode and think I'm doing the right things. I think I'm doing the right things, but you have to wait at least a year for a DEXA, possibly even two, and then you
Yeah,
might see a little bit of a change and not. Whereas something like this, you can be taking action and see a result. Yes, it's
yeah,
working. And
yeah,
then
yeah,
you feel better, you feel more confident, your
yeah,
life
yeah.
gets better, and we move out of that. Oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I really only
Am I
got
gonna break?
16 years to
Yeah.
live? Am I going to make it to 65? Will I ever see my grandkids? Which is all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, which I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm smiling about now, but it's
No, it
like
was, yeah.
so real at the beginning. So
100%,
real.
especially when you for me, when I was diagnosed, I was like, okay, I was still keeping positive. I was still like, you know what? I can beat this. I can get through it. It's tough. But then when we started doing the workup and they did an X-ray of my spine, and they found that I had two crush fractures in my lumbar spine, that's when it really hit home. And I was like, that's my back. That's
Yeah.
my spine. I could be fracturing my spine. And if I'm doing that just from, living, what if I hit something and I'm a paraplegic or worse? That scared me. And that kind of, for me at that point, I felt like my body had failed me,
Yeah.
because I was always a healthy guy. I was always exercising. I was always eating well. I was avoiding this food or that food. I think that kind of contributed to it, where I avoided dairy for my 20s and most of my 30s. But I always felt like I was doing the right thing, right? I was healthy, and then this happens, and I was like, oh, my body screwed me. But then I kind of came to this realization that what if I hadn't been looking after myself? How much worse would it have been?
Absolutely.
But then, yeah, like you said, it was very scary at that point, and I had to kind of treat myself with, like, wrap myself in bubble wrap and start with the basics, real basics of movement and exercise and balance and core work, and trying to strengthen myself, focusing on the right technique. It was all about the technique, because if I could keep the right technique, I could prevent any injuries as much as possible. I mean, you can't always, prevent them. And that's kind of what was my saving grace, was making sure that I had the right technique, and I built up very slowly. And it was tedious. It was like literally I had a broomstick along my back and I was bending over. That was the first, and I had to do that for weeks. And that these basic movements on the ground, and I was like, I just want to lift something. Give me some good stuff to do. But I was like,
If
no,
you've
no,
if
hold
you've
back,
been
hold
sporty
myself.
though, if you've been sporty, which obviously you have been in the past, you've done stuff,
Yeah,
and I'm the same. You constantly go, I can do this. I can do this quicker. I
yeah.
can do it quicker. Well, I suppose we're both fortunate. We obviously had a very good PT or physio, the person who's guiding
Exercise
you, whichever one.
physiologist. Yeah,
Yeah, and we actually managed to get okay,
yeah.
okay. I'll
That
hold
was the
back.
hardest part. It wasn't doing the exercise. It was not pushing myself to
Totally.
doing all the cool thing, all this heavy lifting, the cool things that I wanted to do. It
Yeah.
was just keep it, go slow, focus on technique. Um,
And I think that's where the things like bone turnover markers are great though,
yeah,
because 3 months can pass quite quick with a PT. And if you got a test before and get a test after 3 months and go, oh, I'm not even lifting that much, and I'm starting to see something I'm liking the look of here. It's
yeah,
just it's an extra just to make you go, you know what? I'll persevere.
yeah,
This is worth doing it. It really is.
yeah. And I think there's always a certain level of faith, and that's kind of what I kept reminding myself, that I had to have faith in what I was doing, that it was going to work, even though I didn't know if it was going to work. And then that's the scary thing when you have the scan, and it's like that's the kind of like, I saw it as a deciding factor. And there's probably better ways to do it now that I think of it, but and I kind of put all my chips into onto that one scan, and it was very stressful. And I was trying to, it was like sitting an exam, like a high school or university exam, like all like final year exam, like I'm being tested now, which was stressful. And it was great when it turned out well. It wasn't when it didn't. It's like for me, when it's been an up and down journey. It hasn't always been improvements. There have
Yeah.
been, decreases, which are frustrating and demotivating. But luckily, it was maybe one area, like the hip went down, but the lumbar spine went up. So I was like, at least I'm doing something right, kind of, and then honing in. And this is what I found for myself is, for me, general kind of exercise didn't have the positive, as much of a positive effect as I wanted to. I had to be really specific to particular areas of the body. So for my lumbar spine, if I was just generally lifting or exercising, it didn't improve that much. But when I started focusing on that area, doing particular things with my exercise physiologist that really honed in on the lower back, that's when it
Hmm.
started to improve, like deadlifts and dropping from chin ups, all kinds of cool things. Um, that's when it started to improve. Also with the hips, when I was very much focused, like things like squats, one-legged kind of stuff, impact on the hip, one-legged again. That's when it started to improve, and that was kind of it was kind of like the honing in process for me over the last few years. And what I've realized, that the when I go see my GP, he'll be like, "Oh, just do some general exercise." Mate, it doesn't quite work that way. That hasn't worked out for me. We
No.
need to really hone in and be serious about what we're doing with the exercise to strengthen those bones. Um, and I mean, that's why I wanted to start sharing these stories, because there is a big difference between what we hear from the doctors versus what
This
you hear
this
from
is
people who
this is the
actually
thing I
make
find.
progress.
You get My experience has been, and everyone I've spoken to, all of the doctors, there's no, like, your exercise physiologist. I'm jumping. I haven't met them in the flesh, and you've obviously not met the PT I'm with, but their reaction to it was, I've explained where I'm at. I've got to be really careful, and they were like, almost, I'm excited because I reckon I can help you fix this.
Yeah,
And I'm from your smile there, I'm hoping it was exactly the same experience you
Yeah,
got.
multiple
Whereas,
times from different people. They're like, dude, I know what to do. Of
yeah,
course.
whereas I've never had that from, I've seen three different GPs. I'm just trying to think, different GPs and three endocrinologists, and all of them gave me the, oh, you're gonna have to be really careful. You need to be on these drugs for life,
Yeah,
and really don't lift more than 15 kilos. That's the maximum, which seems to be some arbitrary figure they just pick.
yeah,
And none of them along the lines of, when I express my energy, I've got a kid, I've
yeah,
got a loving wife,
yeah,
I intend to live a long while. I've always considered
yeah,
myself fit and healthy. I'm going to beat this. And they kind of went,
yeah.
it was almost the, well, you can't beat it, mate.
It was almost like
So,
this kind of like pity and a pat on the back, like, sure you will, give it a
yeah.
go, but come back to me in 3 months. We'll talk about this. Yeah,
And there's none of what we're doing right now. People
yeah.
going like, yeah, you may well have to listen. I'm not saying disregard your endo and your GP. They'll come out with
No,
some good stuff. They there
they
might be
need. Yeah,
some,
they're definitely an important part of the process
yeah,
to
they
help uncover the cause.
absolutely. Yeah, they can do all those tests. They
Yeah,
know what to look for, stuff that we're not trained to do. They'll look for it. And if they find a secondary cause or a cause, great. They may well
yeah,
be able to nip it in the bud and it's a completely different experience. But for so many of us where they go, don't really know what happened,
yeah,
which is pretty much what most people I know, and certainly more and more blokes in that under 50 age group and
yeah.
over 50 age group are getting.
Even
Oh,
over. Yeah,
yeah, they're not that much. Yeah, they seem to all come with the same. Oh, I mean, like, I wanted to go to the endo. Right, I've done some research. I want to take Forteo. I'm going to change my diet and eat more of these. I'm going to do this. And each time it was, I said, oh, what vitamin D? I'm going to take that. And two endos both said, well, you can take it. Won't do you any good. Won't do you any harm. Which
they must be looking at the. I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know
I
what,
don't
because the stuff that we're looking at, that's the stuff made for them. To be
exactly.
fair, right? So I get where you come from, and that's been my experience. Now, having been a doctor myself and knowing many doctors and knowing the conditions under which they work and their mindset, where they're coming from is that they're the patients that they usually see are women in their late 70s and 80s. Osteoporosis was usually and discovered in that kind of context, right? Little old ladies breaking bones. They're not doing exercise. They're not getting up. They're not lifting anything. They've probably got a lot of kyphosis, all sorts of things going on. They're like, you know what? All you can really do is take this medication. And I believe that's why they were made for people in nursing homes who weren't going to do anything. Hey, this
Yeah.
medication will prevent you from breaking a hip because that's the most important thing. If someone breaks a hip, their life expectancy shortens to, I think it's like 3 years after that, right?
Unless
So
you're male.
yeah, and it's even
And then
worse
it's,
for a male.
yeah,
Even
it wasn't
worse.
50% survival rate inside 12 months. And these are
Yeah,
the figures that are
the
broadcasted.
the figures are considerably worse for men. And so these medications came in, brilliant. They saved lives. But now where people are aging, there's an aging population where we're starting to pick this up earlier. And they're like, what do we do with all these younger people and all these active people? And they're like, well, we're still stuck in this mindset. All our
Mm.
people are this is what we've been trained on, this is what we know. So then they try and when all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And so they're just like trying to use that hammer on everyone. But it's not the case, right? Because there's so many people like yourself and like the many other men that we've kind of met and gotten to know that they have, I mean, figured it out almost, like worked it out through seeing all these different people and learning from different sources that there is another way, that there is a better way.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, and I think that from the doctors that I've seen, like just recently, I went to one of my GPs and I asked for a referral from the blood turnover for the BTMs. He looked up the guide because this is kind of how they work. If they haven't met many men with osteoporosis and not young men with osteoporosis, like I don't know what to do. They go to the guides, and the guides I looked at it is from 2014, at least 10 years old, and they go, well, maybe blood turnover markers, but they're not really that good. I'm like, what? But there's all these studies from like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago that show that from places like the International Osteoporosis Foundation, from the European Health, like, even in the US. And they just haven't updated it. No one's really talked to them about it because no one, who's going to talk to them about it, right? The education they're getting are from I'm not like a conspiracy theorist or anything. That's not what this is about. But the education they're getting are from the pharmaceutical companies on these medications, on how they work. There's no one saying, hey, how about this non-drug stuff? How about this whole story of osteoporosis, rather than this bit that we all kind of seem to hit. So there's so much more to it. And that's why I'm excited to have these conversations. And yeah, I mean, we can keep talking, Jonny, but I think we've probably reached the limit of what we had planned, and we've covered everything that I had planned. So, is there anything else that you wanna chat about today?
No, that was the interesting point there was the fact that it's that the bit where you want to talk to somebody who's excited to work with you and fix it. If you go to somebody and say, I'm keen. What are you going to tell me I need to do? Do I need to? I mean, if you went into a doctor and smoking's your issue with a lung water and went, I'm keen to do anything, I'll give up smoking. You know, they'll actively say, yep, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. Yeah. You just want to be able to meet somebody that basically is infused and says, we can work together on this one and do it, which literally it's all outside of the medical fraternity. It's this, which I think is wonderful. Because it's exactly what you want to hear right at the beginning, when you are scared, terrified, don't know where to turn to, knowing for a fact that, listen to your endo, maybe take their advice at first, check everything out, and then for a fact you can start eating different, start living your life differently, and you can make a difference. It's not your fault. Maybe it was your fault. Hey, maybe you did something in your 20s and your 30s, but you can make a big difference. So yeah,
I think this is particularly important for men, right? For men, because there's so much for women and older women, but for men of all ages, I mean, there's stuff for older guys, but most of the guys we're talking to are on the younger side, which depends. It's relative, right? But I think that's why it's important. I really appreciate your time, Jonny. I appreciate you having a chat with us, and hopefully we can do more of these with yourself and other guys as well.
I look forward to it. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much.